This is one in a series of demos that depict the kinds of business solutions enabled by Longhorn technologies across a variety of industries. This particular demo focuses on healthcare and looks at it from the perspective of physician practice management simply because that's the nexus of a lot of the stakeholders in healthcare among payers, providers, pharma, patients. You'll see new capabilities in Longhorn that provide specific benefits in healthcare. For example, you'll see easy deployment and upgrades in the form of an X-ray viewer that gets installed just in time, as well as billing module updates according to HIPAA requirements. That easy deployment upgrades translates into reduced costs. You'll see safe code execution, where the confidence of installing software at any point in the process leads to broader distribution and a better ability to write software that addresses end-to-end business processes. You'll see sharing and visualization of data in the form of fax annotations, virtual folders, contact info, and other metadata. And that translates into improved productivity, where you've got fast access to the most needed data and easy integration based on shared metadata. You'll also see collaboration among people in the form of physicians collaborating, patients exchanging data with doctors, all with secure and verified identities. That collaboration produces benefits around customer service and also improved productivity, as you can have a loosely affiliated group of partners work easily together. Longhorn also makes it easier to communicate over any network. You'll see lab results delivered to physicians' offices. You'll see physicians collaborating over X-rays securely over the public internet. The benefits are that you can reduce networking costs by not necessarily requiring VPNs, and reduce integration costs by bridging systems from different organizations easily, all with a programming model that makes it extremely productive to write distributed computing type applications. You'll also see some just great usability from Avalon's application model for page-oriented navigation, task integration, things like that. Those benefits primarily are in reduced training cost and just improved productivity from having software that's easier to use. From an architectural perspective, this demo focuses on WinFS, Indigo, and fundamentals. WinFS for the organization and presentation of patient information. Indigo for the reliable messaging among all the stakeholders in healthcare, whether they're in different organizations across trust domains. Fundamentals for being able to deploy software easily. And then there is a light touch on Avalon, primarily in the form of eDocs and usable business forms. Let's start by assuming we're on a Longhorn PC in a physician's office, and let's log in as the doctor. He's going to use a practice management application written for Longhorn, and on his home screen he's got an outstanding task that he started yesterday in requesting help from a specialist physician to interpret an X-ray for one of his patients, Roger Langle. The lock next to Dr. Rothenberg's name indicates that he's a secure and verified identity. That's part of Longhorn's new identity system. The WinFS contact entry for the doctor has his cached public key credentials that's used to encrypt the message exchange between the two physicians. So even though they're communicating over the public internet, they've got secure communications. The specialist is asked to review the X-ray together, and he's included an attachment. This attachment isn't a simple image file. X-ray images are huge, and it's impractical to send them. What you need to do is have specialized viewing software on either end of the exchange that throttles the bandwidth usage and makes it efficient to pan and zoom. So when we click the attachment, we get the software installed seamlessly, no confusing prompts, and we also get a secure session established between the two physicians. Now, this is a real-life case actually from the Center for Disease Control, where the guy was sent home with inhalation anthrax. He definitely could have used a specialist interpretation of his chest X-ray. These physicians aren't just screen sharing. These are two independent applications that are passing messages to one another with a publish and subscribe kind of model supplied by Indigo. And you can see that as the physicians pan and zoom, I can see my view at the top and the specialist view on the lower right. The specialist is annotating the image using ink. It's being recognized and associated in the metadata for those images. So up to this point in the demo, we've really focused on secure, reliable messaging between trusted entities on either end of the exchange. And we've also focused on the simplicity of deploying software in support of that collaboration. Using Indigo to easily incorporate secure messaging into an application like this is key, especially at a time when there's such sensitivity to patient confidentiality and privacy that at least my physician won't even reply an email with my cholesterol readings. So let's go back to the home screen where I'm typing in a keyword search for hepatitis. That'll use WinFS to do a fast index search on all of the documents that I have related to hepatitis, and I can narrow that down to just research documents. In this case, I'm going to open up a journal article that's DRM protected, and I get a notification from a program that I've opted into from Contoso Pharmaceuticals, a fictitious pharma company. I, as the physician, had already had a relationship with Contoso, and I'd asked them to notify me of clinical trials that match my research interests. So in this case, Contoso is using WinFS metadata from the journal article to determine that there are a couple trials that may be of interest to me. So in participating, I get the inclusion and exclusion criteria for the trial installed locally on my system to evaluate the suitability of particular patients in my practice for that clinical trial. So this is an advantage of Longhorn fundamentals. Rather than pushing data to some third-party server, I can have trustworthy code running locally determining the eligibility of my patients. If you're like me, you get your blood work done in the bottom floor of some medical building, and clearly a place without much IT support. But on our home screen, we're getting electronically delivered lab results, and those are being delivered via Indigo's secure messaging. And in the upper right, you'll see a dynamic task added to the view of those lab results. Based on the medical record for this patient, that task can determine which of the clinical trials he's eligible for. In this case, only one of them, and I'm going to go ahead and flag him as a candidate for that trial. This is a great example of process integration through code mobility rather than centralized servers. After having flagged a number of patients as candidates for trials, I can then use a helper app that Contoso has supplied that runs locally to anonymize the patient data and submit the patients for consideration in the trials. So we've seen a sample of the physician's experience on Longhorn, but let's log in now as his administrative assistant, Florian Voss. She's going to use the same physician practice management software, but her main task is dealing with just the ton of information that's coming into the office and that needs to go out of the office. She's going to start by going into the incoming faxes that she's received. These faxes would typically be just plain TIFF images stored in one physical directory. But with WinFS, we can add additional metadata to that TIFF image to make it easy to organize. We're looking at a fax from an insurance company, and what we'd like to do is associate it with the patient that it corresponds to. So the software package provides OCR capabilities that recognize the social security number and then use that as a key to look up the corresponding patient. This is an example of the WinFS contact API being used to associate the metadata for the contact with that document. So now that we've associated the document with Roger by adding metadata, we can see how WinFS makes documents part of many virtual collections rather than one physical directory. In fact, we can go to the people view and use the fast filter searching to drill down quickly to Roger's patient folder. And in that folder, we'll see the same fax we just saw, a part of his virtual folder. So let's open that fax. But let's say we want to find it by keyword. Here we're going to do a search for Northwind to find all documents related to Northwind Insurance. And then we can filter that down to just faxes received. And we'll see that that same fax is now part of that query result. So as an ISV supplier, you can imagine thousands of physician offices with little or no IT support. How do you get updates to them? Here we're illustrating a click once deployment feature that allows you to schedule software updates. So we have a billing compliance module that's part of HIPAA's rollout on October 16th that'll be scheduled to go live on that date. Now that the software is installed, we have a new feature for the HIPAA billing compliance. In fact, when we go to the billing for Roger Langle, we have a new button on the claim form that allows us to submit directly to Northwind Insurance electronically using Indigo's secure, reliable messaging. The first time we submit, we fill out a few HIPAA profile questions, but we now have an easy way to electronically communicate with the payer in this case. So we've seen physicians, pharmaceutical companies, provider administrators all working with Longhorn, but there's also a patient side to this. We have a request from Roger who, despite having inhalation anthrax and hepatitis, is asking to be underwritten for a life insurance policy, and he's asking that we forward his medical records to him. So let's use WinFS again to do a fast filtered search to narrow in on his patient folder, and then we'll look at the related files and information in his folder. In this case, we'll drag his medical history to Roger as a way of sending it to him. But before we send it, we'll add additional DRM protection to it, and we'll give him administrative rights for an unlimited period since it's his medical history. And then let's send the information to Roger. At this point in the scenario, we're going to do a persona switch here, where we'll look and see what Roger sees upon receiving the information. He's simply going to forward it to his life insurance underwriter. And in this case, before he forwards it, since the underwriter only needs it for the duration of the underwriting period, he's going to apply DRM protection to it to say, look, only the addressee receives read-only permissions for 30 days that he needed it for underwriting, and he'll send that off to the underwriter. So in this concept demo, we've seen the way that WinFS, Indigo, and Fundamentals in Longhorn enable a new class of business application, one that's process-centric, that coordinates information and services from a variety of organizations, all without requiring a common hosting location or private network. Even as the healthcare industry works to overcome some basic administrative inefficiencies that consume something like 20 cents of every dollar spent on healthcare, people see additional opportunities to increase efficiency, to reduce costs, and improve care with software that spans the collaboration among all the stakeholders in the healthcare system: patients, providers, payers, pharma companies, employers, regulatory agencies. Longhorn brings platform support for the applications that span end-to-end clinical and business processes. My name's Carter Maslin, and I want you to be a Longhorn evangelist, so don't hesitate to contact me. Have fun.